Hey, everybody, it's Mark Patterson. I'm back with another great episode of Finding Your Summit, all about people overcoming adversity and finding their way. Before we get into today's great guest, I want to let everybody know about my new website, www.markpattersonnfl.com. I've got a bunch of new great content that's up. I'm doing a lot of keynote speaking. I've got a new book out with the same name called Finding Your Summit. I've got e-courses that are coming out. I have an event that's going to be here in Sun Valley in September. And seems like I've got some other stuff on there too, Hondo. But anyways, go check it out. Oh, another thing I have too is I've got a free What's Your Everest PDF giveaway. It shows how you accomplish things. I've done a few things in my life. I'm proud of that. And because of that, I decided to write. Actually, I wrote that, Hondo, when I was on Denali in minus 60 degrees, stuck in a tent for 5 days. It was awful. But that's what I came up with. Go onto my website, just throw your email in there. You'll get your own copy PDF of What's Your Everest. All right, on that note, let's jump into today's great guest. His name is Hondo Carpenter. Hondo, how are you doing?
Hey, my friend, great to be on with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let me give the quick setup. The quick setup is that Hondo is and has been a long-time beat writer of a number of different teams. Hondo has worked with me at Sports Illustrated for a great many years. He's the beat writer for the Raiders, the Rams, the Chiefs, a bunch of other college teams as well. But in particular, today we're going to talk about leadership and drilling down just one more level. I want to talk about the Raiders in particular, just because they've been going through a lot of challenging times. As you know, Hondo, I played there for a number of years way back in the day, and you've been covering them. I do know that you are in tight with the organization. You're now the longest beat writer since they moved over to Las Vegas. I go there every year and do alumni type events, and there's nothing that I want more than success for the Las Vegas Raiders. So let's get into it so far. What happened to Pete Carroll?
A number of things happened. Let's go back and analyze this, and we'll use your mountain climbing experience as an example. I've never climbed a mountain in my life outside, that required any equipment. I've done it for hunting, but not equipment. But Pete Carroll, when you look at his career, when he has been in charge, he is a Hall of Fame coach. He's going to the Hall of Fame. He's won championships. He's competitive every year. When Pete Carroll is not in charge, he's a failure. He's not successful. And so the Raiders were so discombobulated last year. They bring him in. They're trying to do group think and didn't let Pete be in charge. And they got the results of what happens when everything is discombobulated. The organization hired some of his staff, so they weren't accountable to Pete. You had people doing different things. I'll give you a great example. During OTAs and minicamp, and you having been a player, Mark, you understand that's where the crux of the season really happens, there in training camp. We saw so many things. And as a reporter who's part of the Pro Football Writers Association, we get tremendous access. And in exchange for that, we don't get to discuss things that would hurt the team systemically. Like if they were to change to a wishbone offense, we can't talk about it until they show it, which is fair. I have no problem with that. And so all OTAs, mini camp, and even training camp, we were reporting to the fans, there is so much that you're going to see new. This is what you've been waiting for. And then unbelievably, the season hits and you didn't see it. Just things it didn't go, and it made no sense. It was discombobulation. The players were confused, coaches were confused, people were confused. And you know this, for football to be the beautiful art it is, it cannot be confusing. There has to be order, there has to be stability, and that is really what the Raiders have become known for. They used to be known for just win, baby, but now they're just known as just be mediocre. And one fan sent me an email yesterday and said, explain to me how in the last 6 years I've wasted 100,000, yet I'm still supposed to buy tickets again next year. And that's where they're at right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. Or time as you were talking about this, you and I have been working together closely for a long time. At Sports Illustrated, and there's been dysfunction at times. And but this permeates amongst all organizations. And this is the thing, is it kind of wraps back down in terms of leadership and what it takes. And you can't have people undermining. There has to be a clear organizational structure. And when you have that, and let's go back to even New England not too long ago. You've got the owner who had Belichick, who had Tom Brady, who had all these other players, and there was a very streamlined organizational structure that people knew exactly where to be, who was accountable to who, and what the pyramid of the successful model was going to be. And they stayed to it, the discipline. So going back to the Raiders, if Pete comes in his mind, he's thinking in his head, I'm going to do it the Pete way, the way it's always worked, my way or the highway. And then other people start to undercut. Like, where did those chips start to come in where he was losing his power and he was being undermined?
The sales process was really, hey, come on in here, Pete. We're going to trust you. We got a first time GM. We're all going to be on the same page. It's going to work out. And then all of a sudden you get in there and he's given an offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And okay, then they start to run an offense that isn't a Pete Carroll offense. I think it was week 2. It may have been week 3 or 4, somewhere in that window. I asked Pete, in a press conference, I said, this doesn't look like you. What they're doing, what's going on. And he openly was critical of the offense. And I would talk to people off the record. I had one offensive player say to me, I have no idea what we're doing. I mean, that and it's a good player. I'll give you another example. There was a player on the team who told me this was probably week 13, 14, 12, maybe, but right in that late in the season. 2 offensive players are walking off the field. It was before Chip got fired, so it couldn't have been 14. But 2 offensive players are walking off the field. There's a timeout, and it was like a change of possession timeout. And one says to the other, what the blank play was that? And the other one says, oh, it's something from back in training camp. You wouldn't remember it. I mean, they hadn't practiced it. It is something they had learned early in training camp, had never practiced it, was not in the game plan, and it's getting called. Now, I'm not pretending that it was just on offense. I mean, on defense, they needed to keep Patrick Graham. He was a tremendous defensive coordinator who should be a head coach in the National Football League. They go out and flirt with Robert Saleh. And they don't tell this to Pete. Pete's out there trying to retain Patrick because they want to re-sign Max Crosby. There's a lot that they want to do, and the players love Robbie Leonard, the defensive line coach. They loved Patrick Graham. So they go and they get Patrick to stay, who didn't want to stay, but Pete convinced him to stay. And then he gets there and he stays. Then all of a sudden it leaks out that they offered $6 million a year to Robert Saleh, like they did Chip Kelly. And all of a sudden now they're wanting him to do things that aren't part of his defense, and things aren't working. And it was everywhere. You saw it in special teams. It was an utter disaster. In all of my decades of covering football teams, I have seen championship teams and I've seen utter failures, including when Detroit was at its worst. I have never seen a franchise as discombobulated as the 2025 Las Vegas Raiders.
So when you bubble it all the way to the top now is Mark Davis. I knew Mark back when he was like 25 years old. I was 22, and he didn't know his tail from his head at that time. I would say props to him in terms of he actually did accomplish what was seemed to be impossible of going from Oakland down to LA, back to Oakland. Where am I going to go next? And then they end up and they build this beautiful stadium in Las Vegas, and it is a home run. I go there every year. You're there all the time, and just to see the corporate, the entertainment, the beautiful structure. I mean, it's all there, right? And they just need to win, and they're still selling the building out. At least all the games that I've been to, right, and with great enthusiasm, even though it's a lot of frustration along with that. So starting with Mark Davis, because he's the top of the pyramid now. Like, what can Mark do to make this next, we'll call it Raiders 2.0 or 3.0 or whatever you want to call it, but how does he get this thing back on track?
My father was a very successful man in the steel industry, and he always taught his sons everything, whether it's a family, a business, a church, a synagogue, a school, everything rises and falls on leadership, period. It doesn't matter what you're doing, everything rises and falls on leadership. So I am not excusing what's happened, saying Mark hasn't had a part. But this is very controversial, and I've taken a lot of heat for it. And as a member of the Pro Football Writers Association, people will say, "Oh, he's just saying that so he doesn't lose credentials." That is the dumbest thing in the world. You don't lose your credentials if you tell the truth. And I'm going to go back and say something. Al Davis is not just a football icon, he's an American icon. Years ago, I was in England and on a plane, and a man asked me what I did, and I told him I covered sports in America. And he starts talking about the Raiders to me. Well, he was involved in a soccer team in England, and he starts telling me how they studied Al Davis because, the greatest professional team owner ever. And it really hit me. This was years ago, when I was covering the Lions, of how big of an influence Al Davis had. And I talked about it at length with my good friend Matt. And Al Davis is not just an NFL icon, he's an American icon. But one area where Al completely failed is he didn't teach his son the business of the NFL. Whereas Jerry Jones is doing that with Steven, and you see it with the Hunt family and the Mara and the Wellington family and the
No.
Giants. There's none of that. And so what happens, Mark, is you give Mark Davis a $750 million team. Now, he's able to do something his dad never did. He was able to move him without having to sue the league. He has the best stadium in the NFL. I'm not a Raider fan. I cover the team, but I'm not a fan. But I've been to every stadium in the NFL. It's not even close. It's the best. The best team headquarters, and that's not even close. I remember Belichick personally told me that when he came and visited the Raiders complex, he could not believe how awesome it was. And Mark's taken the team from a $750 million valuation to close to $8 billion. He is a far superior businessman to his dad, but he didn't know the game of football. And to his credit, he admits it. And most billionaires don't do that. So he's gone out and has spent the money. He goes and gives John Gruden 10 years, 100 million. The NBA, the NFL waylaid Gruden and knocked him out. He's still paying Josh McDaniels. He's got Tom Telesco. Now he's going to pay Pete Carroll. He's going to pay him another 30 million. He's going to pay Chip Kelly another 12 million. Someone told me the other day he's out right now, still outstanding almost 75 million in coaches that are not here, because people give him advice, he takes it, and it doesn't work. And all he wants to do is win. So what I tell people is this: Davis absolutely deserves blame, but Mark Davis is what you want in your NFL owner. All he wants is a championship. He would give anything in the world. I believe this, and him and I have not specifically discussed this, and I would never betray him by sharing private conversations. But I'm going to tell you this. I believe if you went to Mark Davis and said, you can win a Super Bowl, but you'll only live 1 year afterward to enjoy it, Mark would take it. That is how much I believe he craves it. And so, again, they come in, and now he has Tom Brady as a minority owner. And he wants Tom Brady to be true north, that direction. And the problem with the Raiders is there's been no stability. Everybody gets fired. So I asked John Spytek, the general manager, do you expect Tom Brady in the building more next year? And the hint was probably not. I'm going to tell you, no one is against Tom, but it is one thing to be an owner and another thing to be the greatest player of all time. Irvin Magic Johnson and I were talking one time in the bowels of the Breslin Center about being an owner, being a coach, and he shared with me something that blew my mind when Irvin said, it's hard to be great at it and then have to coach or lead, because to be great, you have to have a different level of commitment. I've lost 227 pounds. I didn't have surgery. I just wanted, I did it on my own. And I had a person ask me recently, how do you do that? He goes, I mean, how don't you have days where you're afraid to cheat because your doctor? I said, let me tell you this, your doctor doesn't care. The moment your doctor leaves the office, he's thinking about golf and his family. I have a lot of friends who are doctors. They can't live their life worried about you. You have to understand if you cheat, you cheat you. It's kind of like when you watch guys run gassers in football, and you'll see some that reach down and touch the line, some that just kind of fake it. Well, the ones that fake it aren't going to the Pro Bowl because the ones that are touching the line understand this is me competing with me. Every single day when I get up, and I was speaking to a journalism class last week, and one of the guys said, how much are you watching your competitors? I said, I never look at my competitors because I compete every day with me. And if my standard is to be the best, then that's the standard I want to compete against. So I'm going somewhere with this. Tom Brady has got to be in the building. I've had good people in the building that are like, we love Tom. But the problem is we'll make a decision, then it's like, okay, what's Tom gonna think? And Tom thinks, he doesn't have to be there, but he does. And I think until that's fixed, the Raiders are going to struggle. But they've got Tom Brady as true north. John Spytek and him have a very close relationship, and that's the direction they're hoping to go. They're going to let the next coach pick his staff. I asked John Spytek that question. He told me that's what he wants. So I think that's going to be a great help. But at the end of the day, this organization has to get going in one direction, and they've got to stay on it. Think about the great people that have come here that have left. Let me give you one example. Carmen Brasillo was the offensive line coach here, and I sang his praises to Raider Nation. I was talking to NFL, and Mark, I know a lot of general managers, coaches, players. I know the respect that Carmen Brasillo had among the NFL. And Raider Nation, no, he's terrible. He's terrible. Get rid of him. So they did. Now he's in New York with the Giants. And as the Giants are interviewing people, they're asking, can we keep Carmen, please? He took the worst offensive line, and now they're top 5. Think about the players. Josh McDaniels, that is back now getting talked about for a third job because of the job that he's done in New England. There are a multiplicity of great people that have come here. The problem is not the people or the players. It's been stability and staying true to something. But the moment the fans get mad, all right, let's change it and change it again. So let me give you a quick one. Aiden O'Connell's the Raiders' third-year quarterback. He just finished his third year. There are teams that called me and said, hey, do you know if they're going to let him go or whatever? Because if he is, we're going to get him. We kind of like him. And I go, tell me what you like. Well, a little bit here, a little bit there. But the problem is, in 3 years, Mark, he's had 6 offensive coordinators. 6. I'll give you another one. There is one particular part of his game that he has been coached 6 different ways to do it. He doesn't know what he can do. And so a lot of guys have come through here. They've got to get a vision. They've got to stay true to it. And it's not a 3-4 on defense or a 4-3. It's not a spread, run, or pass happy. Just find something so it doesn't feel like every draft you're picking players that no longer work in your next system. They've got to stay on course.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what you're talking about, again, falls back down to just the continuity that a team has to have. Actually, any organization needs to have, whether it's Sports Illustrated or Microsoft or the Raiders or any other NFL franchise, college franchises too, especially now with all the NIL craziness that's going on. And again, putting Tom Brady back in this conversation for a minute, one of the things that players, again, when you start talking about bottom up, not necessarily top down, you think you maybe articulating what the message is and what the mission statement needs to be. But if you're, as a leader, are not walking the walk and talking the talk, and you're there in the grind with them, it's very, very, very difficult for the players then, and that's ultimately who we're talking about, who are going to perform on the field, to go and execute on the degree and the expectation that you want if you're like you said, who's on first? Who's on first? Is it the GM? Is it the head coach? Is it Mark Davis? One of the things that you going back to Al Davis because I was there, Al Davis was great for probably 30 years, right? He's super innovative. He was super forward thinking. His vision in terms of merging the two leagues together, becoming the NFL, what he was able to do, the way that they used to play football, but what he did not do, and his counterpart, Bill Walsh, he was he was the coach, not an owner, but San Francisco was innovating with four wide receivers on the field, 3 to 5 step short passes down the field and letting these guys go versus having Al have the quarterback take 7 steps and have the receivers, me, run down the field and do 22-yard routes. You just don't have that kind of time when you have guys like Max Crosby that are animals that give you. I mean, the other night we watched Aaron Rodgers play. I don't know if you caught that game, but he had maybe 2 seconds max to get rid of the ball because the defensive line of the Texans was absolutely bulldozing over the Steeler offensive front. And that's probably no fault of the Steeler offensive front. Maybe they could upgrade a couple players, but Aaron and everybody else has had no time to throw the ball. And that's why going in back to Dale Davis, having the 7 step drop, which equates to, throwing the ball way down the field, 22-yard out routes, in routes, comeback routes, all those things. It's really hard to do without rolling out and buying some time. It's just everybody's too good, too fast, too everything. And so, it's innovating. It's being the vision of what is out in front. Gretzky used to always say he used to go to the puck, not where it's at, but where it's going. And it's the same type of thing. So it's going to be interesting the way that Tom and the GM, who says he's got a great grip, and whoever now this third head on Monster is going to be, which is going to be the head coach, right? Great. Let's just say that hypothetically he's going to be able to go out and bring in his own players. Awesome. I'm sorry, his own coaches, right? And then those guys working with Tom and with the GM can come up with who they're going to draft. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But, again, is it going to be cohesive? Are the players going to buy off on this? I can only imagine. Again, I'm thinking more about Max Crosby right now, the superstar defensive tackle that you have. I mean, he is just an animal. He's a great player, and you can just see that willingness and that desire to be the best at what he does in his craft. And it's just like all the other frustrations of losing, which caps everything, but just stupid things, offsides and fumbling and interceptions and all these other things that just, equal to losses. And that I can only imagine, like, how do you keep those types of players? So, as you go forward, kind of the opposite end now of the ship that's sinking, which is the Raiders, which they sunk this last year in 2025, is they're going to have the number 1 draft pick. And I can't imagine, since they have yet to really find a quarterback that they can grow with. They had Geno Smith last year that threw another boatload of interceptions, and you just can't win when you're turning the ball over constantly. That they're going to go after probably the hottest player that's out there right now that's playing in the national championship next week, and that's Mendoza, right? So tell me what your evaluation is of Mendoza right now.
A couple of things. In fact, yesterday I had a NFL league source send me their scouting report, and just to hear about Mendoza, I'll give you a couple of examples. I reported before the season that the Raiders were already on him, watching him. It had been revealed to me by some college sources, and then I learned from NFL sources that the Raiders were already on Mendoza. So big shout out to Brandon Yergin, who is in charge of scouting for the Raiders, and he's a rising superstar in the NFL. That's a name you want to remember. He's going to be a GM in this league before his career is over. So the Raiders were all over Mendoza, and early on he struggled a little bit with the blitz. He would drop his eyes, and for people that don't know, a quarterback's got to keep his eyes down the field. He's got to trust his offensive line, and so pressure would come, and he would drop his eyes. So it's off the wide receiver, and he's looking at his protection. Where can I go in the pocket to be safe? Well, you watch the last 8 games of the year, and this is against the best competition that there is. It's phenomenal. And against in the last game where they played Oregon, only one time did he drop his eyes, And one scout told me that if it had not been an end zone camera, he would have never seen it because his head didn't drop. He said it was a phenomenal performance. The guy is absolutely amazingly accurate. Threw more touchdown passes than incompletion, and two of his three incompletions that was the fault of the receiver. So he's tremendous there. He also has a rare talent that most quarterbacks who can run don't have. In the NFL, you get crushed. I'll explain. TJ Duckett ran a 4.440. He was a running back. He was voted in the Heisman Trophy voting, didn't win it, but he was in the Heisman Trophy voting. He gets drafted by the Atlanta Falcons. First round, 4.4 running back. His first day in pads where you could tackle, he takes a sweep play and he gets tackled and he thought he popped his Achilles tendon. And he turns around and looks, and there's a defensive lineman laying on the ground behind him, and he's calling for the trainer. And the trainer gets there and goes, "What's wrong?" He goes, "I think I popped my Achilles tendon." He goes, "Why?" He goes, "Nobody's ever caught me before from the back, and certainly not a lineman." The guy laughed and said, "Get up, rookie. It's the NFL. Everybody's fast." And what happens is in the NFL, when you make that transition from college to pro and you're a running quarterback, the problem is you think you can run yourself out of trouble, and that does not work in the NFL. Everybody's fast. This is where Patrick Mahomes sat, and because he was that way. And while sitting, Alex Smith taught him you stay in the pocket till the last second. You run when you have to, not when you want to. And now look at Patrick's the best quarterback in the NFL. Hands down, nobody can compete with him. Mendoza is one of the rare runners who already has a governor. He doesn't want to run. He wants to stay in the pocket. He's 6'5". He's a monster. He's big. He's strong. And so there are so many things that he does right. This is a no-brainer pick. This is a no-brainer pick. And I'm going to tell you right now, conventional wisdom in the NFL, and I believe this is the Raider mindset, is unless somebody blows their socks off with a trade, it's going to be Mendoza, and it should. He has all of the tools to be a generational talent. Real quick, he's not Trevor Lawrence, which everyone saw as a can't miss, but he's as close to Trevor as there's been since Trevor came out, and he is a generational potential talent.
Yeah, we only have a few more minutes here, but on that comment, I want to just also add that one of the things that people don't understand between college and the NFL, having gone through all the levels, is the process. Or I'm not even talking so much, which you still have to adapt to that as well in the other positions, like for me, wide receiver. But the quarterback position, which people just don't understand, is that there's so many quarterbacks that come out, yet why don't they become Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or somebody like that, right? And the answer is because it takes a highly developed processor in your brain to be able to take on and read the entire field going left to right while you've got these monsters coming at you in nanoseconds. And so all the film study, trying to be prepared in terms of what's coming, where you want to go, all your check downs, and actually say that, but actually do that. And that's the reason why there's this huge separation, you know this, on talent. When we were talking about Mendoza, he seems to be that guy, but you just don't know until they get to the big boys. And I've seen this happen with so many players, including a lot of the guys I played with, which is they get overwhelmed by the situation. And again, it's not for everybody. I think this guy's got the kind of talent that's not going to be any kind of an issue. He's got such a passion to play. He's got such a passion for the sport. He's got such a passion for winning and that drive that I think he can be that guy. But I think that's sometimes the disconnect when people are like, why isn't this guy? I thought he was such a great player in college. There's just a huge speed jump between the college game and the NFL. Okay, we're going to wrap this up. And the one thing I want to know from you, everybody needs to know from you, is where can people find you on these channels that you have? Because you're so good at the coverage, the insights, where you get your information. And more than anything, and a lot of people don't know this because, you work for me, which is the relationships that you have with the organization. So where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Hondo Carpenter, on IG and Threads at Hondo SR. on YouTube at Las Vegas Raiders Insider with Hondo Carpenter, and then at si.com/NFL/Raiders/on SI.
I love that. I love that. Hondo, you're always a blessing. I loved having you on. It's so timely with all this NFL stuff. Super Bowl's around the corner. This will come out in the next week or two. I'm sure they're going to be in search of that new head coach, and then they're going to start formulating who is going to be that first round draft pick for next year. And it would be a shock if it was Mendoza. So I hope you're right on that. As a Raider fan, a Raider player, a Raider alumni, I'm so proud of being a part of that organization. I know they can get it back to where that is. All right, that's it, everybody. He is the one, the only Hondo Carpenter. Hondo, thank you so much.